name is Kevin Danikowski with Time, Knowledge, Power, and I'm here to tell you about how paleo radically changed my life. So what you should know is that paleo is about health, okay? And think about it. All the successful people, if you look at what they do, what their routines are, how they go through their life, they have some type of health plan or some eating plan or something that's going to keep their mind in top shape. Because when you have a mind that's ready to go, that means you're going to walk into a room and you're going to immediately have presence, because your body doesn't look like crap like a lot of other Americans. People are going to look at you with authority. They're going to see that you're a leader, and it's going to allow you to make the decisions that you need to, the serious decisions that change millions of lives, such as Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. If you look at successful people, you notice that A, they're not fat. B, they're always working, so they must have some type of way to have that energy throughout life. And then C, they make good decisions. These are smart people, right? These are smart, powerful people. And so the only way that you're going to make that happen is if you have a lifestyle that's going to allow for these things to happen. So kind of the story of how I get, or you know what, let's talk about what is paleo. So paleo is essentially no grains, no dairy, no processed food. It talks back to the Paleolithic era, which was the time before agriculture. And there's arguments of agriculture started 10,000 to 30,000 years ago. We're not going to get into that story, although it's very interesting. But we need to understand that cavities and issues with health and supposedly cancer levels, don't quote me on that, have actually increased since the time that agriculture was thought to take place. So paleo is about getting back to that time so that we can have the optimum health that we were really designed to have, or not designed, or evolutionarily formed, and whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. What it's about is getting into that healthy state so you can tackle all the tasks that you have in your life. And on top of that, think about it. Your health is a responsibility to the fellow people around you, your family. Do you want to be the person putting a burden on your family when you're old and decrepit and essentially ate like crap your entire life, and as a result they have to take care of you, they have to put you in a nursing home, you're starting to have dementia, Alzheimer's, or whatever it is? Now, yeah, you can make arguments that these are diseases that, you know, genetic origin and so on and so forth, but a lot of this deals with lifestyle. Just check out the video, Terry Wahls. You know what, I should just mention it right now. So there's this TED Talk on Terry Wahls. She's an MD, she's the head of a research foundation, and when she started getting older, she actually has multiple sclerosis, and those symptoms started getting worse and worse. And multiple sclerosis is actually a neurodegenerative disease attacking the myelin sheath in your central nervous system. So I actually published a review article on this, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Anyway, she had to go into a zero gravity chair, and what that meant is that, you know, she couldn't do the research she loved. So she had connections to all like the top people out there. And what she did is she went to all these people and she said, like, okay, what are the best supplements for the brain? And so she started taking those supplements in, and she decreased the progression of the disease, but it didn't halt it. It didn't stop it. And it didn't make it better, that's for sure. And so she's like, okay, well, what about the foods that have these in them already? What if I start eating those foods, and then maybe I'll get these nutrients and others that we didn't even discover yet? And so within 1 year, she was able to ride her bike for the first time in a decade. And on top of that, it was only, or she was able to ride it for, I believe it was like 10 miles. So yeah, I know, 10. But this is powerful, this is revolutionary. Now, she's gone into remission, which means that, you know, she does not have the disease symptoms right now, or at least they're very mild, and she's right now running tests to make sure this is going to happen with other people. So why is paleo so important for you? Paleo is important because it keeps your immune system in tip-top shape, keeps you from getting sick, it keeps you at a higher energy level, it keeps you at a higher happiness level, right? It keeps you in the proper physical physique. There's a video that I made that you should check out. It's called How to Get a Six-Pack Without Even Going to the Gym. This is possible, and paleo is one of the methods that you can use to make this happen. Okay, so why did I start? Well, I was actually working as a server at a banquet hall years ago. This is 5 or 6 years ago now, 2017 right now. And so there's a guy I was talking to, and he's like, yeah, I only sleep like 5 hours a night. I'm like, how do you do that? You know, I'm sleeping like 6 to 7, and I'm still tired. I have, you know, like all these obligations and so on and so forth, and now I'm getting like, I'm trying to cut my sleep as much as possible. So I'm like, how does this happen? Because this guy was like, energized. He was like ready to go. He was hopping around like the life of the party and whatnot. And so he's like, yeah, man, I started paleo. And I'm like, what's paleo? And he started telling me about it. And he's like, yeah, I have all this energy that I didn't used to have before, and it radically changed my life. And so I was like, okay. And then the next day I started like right away. And essentially what that was, I mean, I was still learning what it was, but I cut out all carbs, like anything that had carbs, gone. I essentially only ate vegetables, a little bit of fruit, and a lot of meat. Now, was it the best to go in cold turkey? Well, I'm gonna give you a disclosure. So I was working out about 24 hours a week at that point. And so in doing so, I ended up urinating blood. And the reason being is only because, so if you take a lot of proteins in and you're working out a lot, it puts a lot of work on your kidneys. And so it was like a dramatic change. But basically that went away in like a couple days and I was good to go. So keep in mind, if you're gonna change your diet to have like some massive protein intake, which you don't need to do for paleo, by the way, just keep that in mind. It's better to do a little bit more of a gradual instead of a cold turkey, just go in. Anyways, so I ended up doing this diet, and within a couple weeks, I was feeling like feelings of euphoria all the time. I was constantly happy, and it was really making me feel like I was being really productive. So essentially, to give you an idea of what I was eating, I made all of my food in the morning. And for the most part, it was all raw food. Raw food is honestly the ideal if you're trying to save time in your life. Because if you want to cook something, guess what? That's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, multiple times a day. You can't be doing that if your goal is to have as much time as possible. So what you can do for that, just as like a little side note, is you can hire like a local kid to like cook your meals for the week. Give them like, I don't know, $40, him or her, him. And that can help you out. But anyways, let's get back to it. So essentially what I was eating was I'd have like a container of peas like this big. If you don't like peas, there's plenty of other options you can use. You can use carrots, you can use frozen, strawberries. You can use a lot of frozen stuff. I recommend going to like Whole Food sale stores such as like Costco or Sam's, and I would just buy like bulk items. And so I'd have usually a couple bananas. I would have these frozen pre-made turkey things. I know they weren't the best, but this was like the way to get into it with as little amount of work as possible. I would eat eggs in the morning. I'd eat a lot of eggs, probably about 6 eggs in the morning, sometimes more. So I had a coach at that time, and he was doing paleo as well. And this was actually a guy that I worked for as a trainer, and he was eating like a dozen eggs a day. Freaking ridiculous. But let me kind of blow up this myth. A lot of people think like paleo is just eat tons of protein, just keep eating protein. That's not really what it is. The idea is to get to a time before agriculture. That means if you couldn't find it in nature, you don't eat it. Kind of like what Jack LaLanne says. So Jack LaLanne, just so you have a little background, at 93 years old, he did 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 pull-ups in like an hour and a half and set some record on a couple of other of his birthdays. He wore some like buoyancy vests, strapped a bunch of boats to his back and swam like half a mile. Like, this guy is insane, right? He's known for the Jack LaLanne juicer. So what he says is, if it looks good, don't eat it. If it tastes good, spit it out. Now, you don't have to be that in depth with paleo, but it gives some insight on the idea, which is we really have all of these things that just you don't need. For instance, when I started paleo, within 1 month, every food that I was eating started tasting so much better. And the reason that was happening was because I was getting rid of all of these artificial sweeteners. There's so many artificial sweeteners nowadays. If you have soda, there's just like massive amounts of sugar in that, all these fast food places, etc. So now, how do you make paleo practical for you? So getting back to this like idea of you need some like desserts that you can have. So at least for me, what desserts that I choose that are still paleo is I eat peanut butter and carrots or peanut butter and apples. Carrots and apples are paleo, and they're raw, so you don't really have to do anything except maybe cut them up a little bit. And carrots are actually really cheap. Apples are reasonably cheap, but then peanut butter is technically not paleo. So keep that in mind when you're going about doing this, that nuts are really not paleo. To give you an example, if you were in the Paleolithic era and you went and you had a handful of wild almonds and you ate them, you die. And the reason being is because there's cyanide in them because they're wild. And what that basically what happened about 3,000 years ago is that the gene for cyanide was actually there's a mutation and the gene didn't work. The cyanide also coded for the bitter taste. So when that gene wasn't functioning anymore, that meant that the seeds were palatable by a lot of animals. Normally this would destroy the tree, because the tree, all the seeds are going to get eaten and it's never going to propagate. But humans came in the scene. We're like, oh damn, this is really tasty. And so we took our little handful back to our hut or whatever. We dropped a couple on the ground. More trees started sprouting, and there you go. Genetic mutations. What would have been a detriment in the Paleolithic era, because humans were on the scene, we actually allowed these things to happen. Such as like pea pods, they actually explode. They open and allow the seeds to drop to the ground. There's a genetic mutation, could have killed the plant, but it didn't actually kill the plant, because humans came on the scene. We're like, oh, this is perfect for actually scavenging and harvesting and such. And so we were able to grab more pea pods and so on and so forth. Anyways, so back to some dessert items. So what I like to do as well, I love chocolate. Like, chocolate is my weakness. And so the way to get chocolate while still doing paleo is I take a banana and then I go and I get unsweetened baker's chocolate at the store. So the only ingredient is chocolate. Now, chocolate is a bean, and beans technically aren't paleo, because actually if you were in the Paleolithic era, you wouldn't eat beans that much, for the example I just gave about the pea pods. But anyways, you can only be so practical with it, and there might be accounts that beans were actually eaten on the Paleolithic diet and back in the Paleolithic time. Anyways, so I have a bite of this unsweetened chocolate, and a lot of people don't like it, but then you eat the banana, and the banana gives you that sweet taste. And so that's a way to make something paleo, there's essentially no sugar in this unsweetened baker's chocolate. It's just fiber, and fiber is ideal for basically your bathroom activities and so on and so forth. And then the banana is also good because it has fiber, potassium, so on and so forth. We're not going to get into it. Anyways, something powerful is that when I started paleo, a month later, all the foods that I was eating started tasting so much better. And the reason that they were tasting better was because I completely got rid of all these artificial sweeteners. And so by getting rid of those, my taste buds started to get accustomed to the less sweet taste, and everything started tasting better because my sweet taste buds started getting more sensitive. So what do you think about it? So that was a huge benefit. It made everything taste better. Lettuce, which normally tasted just okay, now tastes actually pretty sweet, which I know sounds a little weird, but that's just how it is. Carrots taste really sweet. Maybe you think carrots taste sweet already. Carrots are, enjoyed by a lot of people. Let's see, what other foods are like cheat items? Oh, I tend to have chips and salsa a lot. Salsa is not paleo because of the processed part, but you can make your own salsa. You can, chop up some tomatoes, add some basil, some garlic, and get some, spices in there, and so on and so forth. And spices, I don't know if you've ever cooked, they're actually really easy. So a tip that I use is that if the two spices smell the same, then odds are they'll work pretty well in combination. So you just work off of that, and honestly, you can make some really sweet foods, or some really kind of like garlic with a salty, sweet taste, and so on and so forth. So you can make your own salsa. And then for chips, I always get sweet potato chips, and sweet potatoes are paleo. Potatoes are paleo. You can eat as many potatoes as you want. Keep in mind that they do have more carbs in them, but these are starches, easy to break down, not like cellulose, which you can't break down. They do, sweet potatoes actually have more vitamins than other potatoes, so that's another benefit. And then the thing is that when you cook foods, you actually create these carcinogenic compounds. Now, don't worry about that. I know that sounds like terrible, and it's really not that big of a deal. But just keep in mind that there's a benefit to eating both raw and cooked foods. By cooking it, you get more nutrients extracted from it. By breaking bonds your body couldn't otherwise break, whereas eating it raw is going to give you nutrients that you would otherwise kill by cooking it. So there's a give and take. But do what you wish, as long as you're eating the right foods, that should be good. And so there's a hunter-gatherer culture out there. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but there's supposedly only one hunter-gatherer culture out there left, and they eat vitamins, or their vitamin intake is 10 times the recommended daily value of that here in America. And so what that essentially means, to give you an example of why the recommended daily value is a bunch of BS, is a perfect example is the drug fen-phen. It was a diet pill. It was made, I think it was like the 80s or the 90s. I don't remember for sure. Don't quote me on it. I watched a lecture from the guy that actually went to Europe to get them to stop giving out this drug, because fen-phen was actually causing this pulmonary hypertension that was leading to death in like 3 years. And it was ridiculous. It was like 4 times the increased risk compared to cigarettes' risk for lung cancer, right? So it was really bad, and it was killing people. So anyways, this doctor goes out there, stops Europe from distributing this fen-phen drug. It's really horrible for people, this diet pill, and then comes back in 1 month, the FDA approved it in America. Yeah, go America. No, America is really great, gives you a lot of opportunities, but they don't care about your health, so please keep that in mind. That the FDA recommended values is like some minimum value, which is arguably pretty arbitrary. And it's all about the bottom line, whereas I'm trying to tell you that the more nutrients you can get, the more beneficial it is. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals that if you have too much, you just won't absorb it. So it's no big deal if you get too much. But if you don't have the allowable amount, then you're gonna get fatigue from like anemia, which means you have a reduced red blood cell count, so you can't get oxygen around your body, and so on and so forth. So paleo is not gonna allow that to happen if you do it right. So anyways, to wrap up, the powerful things that I got from paleo was that everything started to taste better, that I had, the physique that I wanted without much effort at all. I could stop going to the gym if I wanted. I'd essentially maintain most of what I had or have. My mind was clear a lot more of the day. Like I was able to articulate myself much better. I was able to make much better decisions. I was able to continue my energy throughout the day, so that was a powerful thing. And those are really the key things that transform my life, and it's going to allow me to not burden my family later on in my life when I become older. There's a lot of chances out there for you to get all these variety of diseases and issues and so on and so forth, and some of that's inevitable, but then some of that is definitely preventable. And so by not making the right lifestyle choices now, you're really just going to be putting the burden on your family or your children or whatever it is later on in life. And so that's another powerful benefit of eating this way, is that you don't have to worry about that as much. But that's it. I hope you enjoy this video. There's going to be plenty more on the Paleolithic diet and ways that you can utilize that to maximize your time, efficiency, energy, the power that you have in your life, the presence that you bring whenever you enter a room, etc. So if you want more information like this, make sure to watch the rest of these videos. You've now reached the end of this video, which means that you found value in the content that I provided here. So what's holding you back from hitting the like or subscribe button so that I can bring this content to viewers just like you? Did you know that when you like a video, it actually goes into a neat little playlist, perfect for referencing information later on? So for more powerful content on how to save more time, build your knowledge repertoire, and gain more power in your life, visit timeknowledgepower.com. Click below, and I'll see you next time.